you so much for joining me on the Creative Awakening Now podcast. I'm your host, David Matters, and I'm here to bring you stories, interviews, and insights relating to the topics of creativity, inspiration, and practice. My intention is to connect with other people who employ a heart-centered approach to the artistic process and to share this profoundly inspiring content with anyone who cares to hear it. I hope you enjoy. This is a dream, and a dream is never the same. My guest this week was Danny Ellis, an accomplished and eclectic musician, straddling rock, pop, jazz, and folk. Danny crafts songs that hold a rare intimacy and honesty. Born in Dublin, Ireland, he played trombone at the age of 8 in a Dublin orphanage band. His songs have been recorded by many top Irish artists, 3 of which entered the top 10. He toured with Graham Parker and the Rumour, the Foundations, and was a session singer for London's Abbey Road studio for 4 years. For his acclaimed biographical album, 800 Voices, My Life in an Irish Orphanage, he was awarded the Lyricist of the Year by Just Plain Folks, the biggest independent music award organization in the world. This album has been hailed by Hotpress, Ireland's leading musical magazine, as one of the classics of contemporary Irish music. Danny has written a book and play based on this CD. This book, The Boy at the Gate, was published in the fall of 2012 to international critical acclaim and reached number 2 in the Irish book charts. Danny is a much sought-after vocal and music coach among pros and beginners alike. He has taught singing and songwriting at the Swannanoa Gathering for 4 years at Warren Wilson College. He teaches privately from his studio in Asheville and offers a unique approach to musical and performing authenticity, based on self-healing and down-to-earth, grounded spirituality. A lifelong meditator of 45 years, and informed by decades-long study of the mysticism of Taoism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Sufism, Danny also teaches mindfulness and meditation. And I'm just so excited to share this interview with you guys. I'm fortunate enough to say that I did quite a few sessions with Danny, some vocal lessons last summer, fall, something like that. And yeah, we linked up. I just connected with him. I knew of his music. I saw him at the Swannanoa Gathering actually when I was there, and was just blown away by his voice and his lyrics and everything, but also just like his presence. And so I contacted him and we got together, and the lessons were just awesome. He pretty much embodies everything that I try and do with this podcast, and we go into all that. And his story in general is really interesting, really inspiring, but I know you guys are going to love it, so I definitely hope that you will check out his work. I'll have the links posted in the show notes. He is taking some more students right now for singing, songwriting, some piano, and I believe a little bit of theory, also meditation. He's very busy. He's booked up pretty well solid, but he did say he has a couple spaces open if anyone's interested, so you can either hit him up directly or hit me up, and I'll put you in touch. But yeah, he's a really, really great guy. I'm so grateful to have met him and to now call him my friend and to have learned from him. And I definitely intend on doing more of it in the future. So yeah, check it out. Definitely go online and find his music. He's got several albums out there too. Just such a great voice, such a great songwriter. So yeah, I hope you'll get into that. Please go on over to Creative Awakening Now to check out everything I got going on there. Stay in touch with me. I kind of updated the website recently, so it's looking good. Check out my band Life Like Water. We got all kinds of good stuff going on locally. I've been playing a bunch of solo stuff as well, so if you want to check out some live music, check that out, and hopefully get some recording going in the future. We'll probably launch another Kickstarter campaign eventually. So yeah, if you guys want to hear that, you want to link up in that way, I would be grateful to check it out. And also, as usual, if you could leave a rating or review for this podcast, I would be oh so grateful. I really need just need that connection. I need people to get on listening to it, telling me they like it, and tell me they appreciate it, and I take that onto iTunes and go in and leave a rating review so it can help me get some more exposure. I'd be really grateful. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are having a great spring coming up on summer here. I hope you guys are treating yourself well. We'll talk again. So have a good one. Much love. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And thank you, Danny, so much for having me over to your house and agreeing to do this.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Great. I've been looking forward to this interview. We did some vocal lessons together, and I've loved your music since I first heard it, so I'm really looking forward to what we're going to get into. But first, I'd be happy if you would kind of give us like a little background, your history and stuff, and largely what's kind of got you onto the creative path and has brought you to where you are now.
All right. So you have 72 years, do you?
Roughly. I'm more than you.
Well, my first introduction to music was my mother singing. She had a beautiful voice, and she would drag us down to the pub, the local pub, and she would sing for us, and everybody else would sing. And in the Irish pubs at the time, and often now, one person would sing and everybody else would be very quiet. And if somebody joined in, somebody would shout out, "One voice, please, one voice," which is really cool. And so the Irish, my introduction to music was very deep, almost sorrowful kind of expression of the Irish kind of thing at the time, the poverty, and the Brits had impacted the Irish psyche for like 1,000 years. So the Irish music tends to be very kind of like sad and deeply meaningful, and deeply evocative, touching your soul centers. And so that was my introduction to music, my mother singing, other people singing in the pub. And then, of course, my family broke up and I went into an orphanage, an Irish orphanage, and that was pretty traumatic. But on my first Sunday there, the school band, the Irish orphanage school band played, and that was like a 60-piece brass and reed band with 10 drums and 5 trombones and 5 trumpets and 10 saxophones, and so just a marvelous cacophony of like Irish rebel music, which entered into my soul and had a deep impact on me. My whole attention turned from being abandoned by my mother to wanting to join the band. And that I did. I played trombone. And so I played in the school band for many, many years. Maybe 8 years. No, maybe 6.5, 7 years. And then I left. Actually, I was really lucky. When I was in the band, the orphanage band would go out and play at football matches and play at various kind of like functions, Lord Mayor functions, civic functions, and Catholic functions. And one day, when one of those outings, somebody heard me play and came up to me afterwards and gave me his phone number. And he was a band leader, a local Dixieland jazz band leader. And so when I left the school, I called him and I pretty much got a job pretty much straight away. So from then on, I was playing in various bands in Dublin. And the Irish music situation was very, very weird and very kind of unique in that strewn throughout Ireland were hundreds of dance halls, literally maybe 400 or 500, I'm not sure the number. So every little town had a dance hall, and they would have at least one dance a week, maybe 2. And that's where guys went to meet girls, and girls, went to meet guys, and guys would stand on one end of the ballroom, and the girls would stand on the other end, and the band would play, and they would rush towards one another. At least the guys would rush towards the girls, and they would dance, and sometimes the parish priest would be in there pulling them apart, saying, "You're dancing too close there," and all of that kind of stuff. So 8 years on the road playing cover music, playing cover songs, top 40 songs, playing trombone, and eventually learning to sing. And by the time I was 26, I left the orphanage at 16, and by the time I was 26, I was beginning to notice that something was not right inside my psyche. And the musical personality, a personality based on being good at music, wasn't enough to sustain some deep ache, some undealt with trauma that was hidden inside my body. And I began to feel like I was breaking down. And so at that particular time, I came across a friend of mine who had started meditating. And he told me about meditation. And he was living in an ashram, actually, in Dublin. So I went to the ashram and found out about meditation and signed up to be initiated into this particular type of meditation. And it was beautiful. It had a profound effect on my life, on my psyche, on my feelings, on my body, my mind. And I had an experience about a month after that, which totally would change the whole direction of my life. And that experience was one in meditation, disappearing into light. And I wasn't even trying to meditate. I didn't even know. I wasn't like in a kind of a in a benignly beautiful, settled feeling or anything. I was just sitting there, and suddenly I was taken by. I just had a realization that I was meditating in the dark, and I had a realization that I wasn't seeing with my eyes. And it was like, what? It's not my eyes, but I'm still seeing. And then this thought occurred to me, then why do you have this idea of frontality? And I popped into 360 degrees sightedness, which was light itself. And it's impossible to explain, but it was completely beautiful, completely natural and familiar, loving, and totally beyond any doubt. And all there was just like the pure light of consciousness. And that made me question my whole life's direction. And I immediately gave up a seriously well-paying job in Dublin as a band leader, and went to England and joined an ashram in England. And it was around then that I started playing guitar. Actually, no, I'd had some guitar lessons from the various guitar players and bands I played in. They would teach me one chord after a gig. Here you go. So let me the guitar for a few minutes, and I'd whack away on like an A or something, and then after a month or so, I'd learn a C or a G. So after 5 years or so, I knew about 8 or 9 chords, and but I didn't own a guitar. But when I left the Irish show bands, I bought myself a guitar and started to practice that and write songs on that. And so it was very. My music started to change. I started to feel that there wasn't really anything else to write about, except the experience that I'd had in meditation was so profound. It was a bit like being taken by a spaceship. These, like, what do you call these, where they steal people, these stories. Sorry, abduction, alien abduction. It was a bit like that. And it's like, so it was a bit like being abducted by an alien and then taken back, been shown the universe, and then put back into Dublin City and all the little kind of like trivial things that are going on, which are actually not so trivial, but at the time they looked a little bit trivial. The human journey seemed like, come on guys, something else going on here.
Yeah, after some cosmic sight.
Yeah, and so that was really, really a beautiful experience. But the funny thing about it is that I know that a lot of your listeners are meditators, or beginning meditators, or maybe expert or whatever. But there's something, that I think people, it's not often talked about, is that you can have a deep experience of meditation that makes your life very uncomfortable from then on, because it's not the same. It's just not the same. Maybe you were part of some political thing, or maybe you were part of some, some volunteer thing where you were helping, and your life had some meaning, and a beautiful meaning. And sometimes you can have an experience of meditation which kind of like challenges all of that, and can make you feel a little bit lost, So it's always good to have some help from people who have traveled that road before you, So there's always a great need for help and guidance. And for me, I didn't really have that much guidance. My ordinary personality, which was based on my experience in the orphanage, of push and shove, and I want to be better than everybody else, and that's the only way I can get by in this life, is to be better than people, and to somehow be more powerful if I can than others. That was what my life was based on. And when I had my meditation experience, that whole personality fabric was basically shattered, and yet I didn't have a new paradigm yet. I hadn't developed a new way of being, a new kind of like insightful, informed way of dealing with my spiritual self and my not so spiritual self. So there was huge conflict between what I saw to be an absolute truth and what I recognized to be absolute rubbish in my personality. And so I had a long period of years adjusting to the fact that I was pretty fucked up as an ordinary person, And lots of other people who didn't have that trauma weren't so fucked up. And there was a big disparity there for me. Well, how come I've had this great experience of meditation, and I'm experiencing bliss and meditation every day, and yet I'm still a bloody idiot in ordinary things, So that took quite a bit of getting used to, And one of the things I did, of course, was I left Ireland. I left the show bands in Ireland. I left all of the things that held my personality together, my identity together. I kind of abandoned them, and tried to be a saint in an ashram somewhere, sitting on a floor with a blanket over my head and my knees crossed and my eyes crossed and everything else crossed. And so those many years of painful kind of realization that, you have to deal with your ordinary self. You have to deal with your ordinary personality and the ordinary way that you deal with things. And you just have to go through it one brick at a time. You're not going to knock the whole house down all of a sudden, And even today, it's like, you'll see people who are like very enlightened in one department, and bloody idiots in another department, And it's like the two truths, like the convention and reality and the absolute reality. Somehow they have to meet harmoniously, and so that's the kind of thing that I kind of like to teach. Really, is that kind of integration of your ordinary, messed up self and the experience you have in the quiet. And there is a bridge between the two of them, and I call that bridge Passaggio.
Passaggio.
Yes. And so, right now I'm teaching meditation pretty much every day as part of my music teaching, because students come in and I recognize that they're trying to achieve stability or peace of mind or some satisfaction from gaining some musical prowess, you know, and that's beautiful. But somehow or another, you have to approach it from the other side of things as well. It's like it's really important to realize that there is something prior to your desires. There's some light of consciousness which we're all looking for, really. We're looking for it in relationships. We're looking for it in attainment, in insights, and so on. And the thing about it is that it's always there. That light of our consciousness is always there. Can I stop for a drink of water? Is that possible?
Absolutely, yeah.
I notice my tongue is getting dry as we're going on.
I'll just say, I mean, we've talked plenty before because I took these lessons with you, and immediately when we started chatting, I was just like, okay, you're touching on exactly what it is that I feel, but, you know, have been trying to articulate. And I've been doing that through this podcast and through my music and my writing and stuff. And you have this way of kind of effortlessly putting those two together. And obviously it's through your life. You know, you just seamlessly went from, I was a musician in an orphanage, and then now all of a sudden in an ashram, and now all of a sudden, you know, combining those two. But you have this way of subtly putting it together that I really appreciate. And you kind of answered a bunch of questions that I would normally go to anyway, just by saying that. But it's really great that the intention of this podcast and everything that I do with it really is about that. It's about that space, that how creativity has such a deeper meaning, you know, has such a more like spiritual, if you will, implications if you allow it to. But also the you know, the other side of it, like the spiritual side of things, can be just as creative and playful as music.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, the word creativity implies that you're starting from nothing. Otherwise, you're just kind of like patching old stuff together, you know, which is okay. But to get, you know, to feel as a musician that you're okay, even if you fail as a musician, you know, to have some root as you know, as part of your own comfortableness with yourself, that you want to express with music, instead of doing it the other way around. Instead of, well, if I get these skills and I can sing in front of people, people will like me and I will be very comfortable with myself. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. And somebody asked me the other day, could you give me an elevator pitch? Somebody was auditioning me for to teach them music and singing. And I'd never thought about it before. And I could see that this person was anxious to kind of like to gain something musically that would be good for them and their life. And I said, well, I think one of the things that I can help you to find is, I can help you to find that thing which you think music is going to give you. I can help you to find that even without music, even if you failed miserably as a musician. And that seems to be true.
Yeah, it's such an important place that you, like you said, it gets really skipped over in creative circles a lot of time, because it becomes this pedestal for the ego. Like, oh, if I can just be good at this, if I can just impress people, if they can just look at me, I'll feel better. My life will have meaning. I'll feel complete.
I'll be admired.
And we have, I mean, you can't blame people for having that, obviously. That's kind of what culture has taught us, that like we look up to musicians and we put them on this pedestal. But it's not, it's a fantasy. I mean, it's a total hallucination if you don't actually have that peace in yourself. And I know from personal experience that the better you get, the higher your expectations, and you just keep going and going and going. And you think, like, you see people on this stage and performing for thousands of people, and you think they have it, they must have it, they must be at peace, they must be so happy. But I've known tons of very successful musicians who are not any of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a really strange thing that we have this idea about it, and it doesn't actually exist there all the time, you know?
It's very kind of simple in a way. It's like there's this drive inside us, there's a light. A light that is shining outwardly. And it's shining out in search of something. And we think, well, maybe if I had a person who understood me, you know, in a relationship, then that would do it. Or if I was better at my job, or if I had more friends, or if I could be a, you know, good tennis player, whatever. So that drive is inside all desire. It's like it's the flame that's inside all outward push. But the ironic thing is that flame, that desire, that drive is looking for itself. It's almost like the very first thing that God said. It was like, what? You know? And it's like, who? You know? And so that question is like resounding throughout the universe as, who am I? And it manifests as, mistakenly as, what can I become? Which is like a mistaken interpretation of the original question in the heart, which is, who am I? And we interpret it as, you know, how can I be better? How can I excel? You know? And those, there's nothing wrong with those things in themselves. But if you don't answer the first question, the question, how can I be better, will always remain unfulfilling, no matter how good you are. There'll be, I mean, the prowess on any plane is infinite. So there's infinite ways you can become better. So infinite ways that you can become more frustrated, you know. So if you don't have that root of the first question, which is saying, who the bloody hell am I anyway? And what is it that constitutes me? It's certainly not my traumatic framework that surrounded my influence as I was growing up, that influenced me. And it's not the things we're having a power struggle here.
Yeah, I think I should be alright if I got battery on this, so I should keep going.
Oh good. Maybe the universe is not agreeing with what I'm saying.
I think it is agreeing.
So we better pull the plug on this guy now before he goes any further. But yeah, so the very first thing I do with all of my students is I try to get them to recognize what is it in them that recognizes excellence. So you want to be an excellent musician, you want to be creative, you want to write great songs. So how do you even know about excellence? You know, what is that were you okay here?
Yeah, you're good. Keep going. I'm just going to unplug.
So what is that in you that recognizes excellence? How do you know? What is that inside that says, wow, that's really beautiful? We see a circle and we all agree that a circle is a wonderful shape. So there's something inside that is telling us like the worth of things. And so that thing itself must be the most valuable thing. So if we can, as musicians or as people who are looking to improve ourselves, if we can find that thing which knows what improvement means, then maybe we can stop trying to improve and just focus in on that.
Yeah.
And then of course improve. Yeah, become a great guitar player or singer. But first of all, know what it means, that what improvement really means, and what is the light inside you that recognizes that excellence. And can that light shine back upon itself and recognize its own excellence?
Yeah, it's almost like there's so much in front of us that we want to attain, but really like we kind of have to like reduce everything to start from there. You know, like we're halfway up the ladder, but we got to start from the bottom to actually get to the top. Like one of the exercises that I remember you did with me when I was singing with you was you were like, all right, now just go to zero, because we were laughing, we were talking and singing or whatever, and we were just like, go to zero. And I didn't exactly know what you meant, and it was kind of like awkward at first, you know. And then we both just dropped in, like fully dropped, let go of everything, and we were just making eye contact and just fully just present with what was, not worrying about music, not worrying about singing. And you were like, right there, that's where we start from, you know. And you can always go back to that. And I remember that it was so important, because when you're on stage performing, I've been in that position where you get up there and you're all nervous, and like you play your first song and it usually isn't that great because you're kind of tense, but after the first song it's like you let go. I mean, that's always how it goes for me.
Either you let go or you get used to the stress.
Yeah, or that too. It could be that.
You know,
But it's a good stress in that situation.
Yeah.
For me anyway. But when you start from that place of like, okay, like baseline, and then work your way up, you know, there's no tension on top of it.
Right.
I like how you put it in terms like that, because there's always so much more, you know, in front of us that we're seeing. Like, we always see the next thing, the next level, but if we don't have that solid foundation to support the higher elements, it just topples down on top of us. And I've felt that so many times, even with songwriting, like working this song out, writing it, and so inspired, so into it, spending hours and hours and hours, finally finishing it, and then like, you know, you're in the middle of it and all you think about is this song. Like, all your energy, all your focus is in this thing, and you're totally in this like samadhi state where you're just one pointed. But as soon as it's finished, I'm like, okay, next song.
Yeah.
You know, and I catch myself doing that, where I was in it, I had it, I was right there.
Yeah, it's like the forces of compulsion or something.
Yeah, you just want more. Like, okay, I did it, I attained it, what's next? And it just seems so, it's just kind of a you know, habituated part of our nature that we just want more.
Right. Inside in the drive for more. In the same way that inside in the light of a flash lamp that's shining on a cockroach and it's going, wow, there's a cockroach.
Yeah.
Inside in that light is how the flash lamp is able to see, how the flash lamp illumines. So inside in the light of wanting and the light of desire is that which illumines the world for us. And it illumines it with a halo of attraction. It illumines it to say, oh boy, if I could just do that, if I could, and it's endless. And so if it's this endless drive, why don't we examine that drive itself? Why don't we shine our own light back upon that beautiful compulsion to do more? It's a wonderful thing. And there's nothing wrong with being better and more conscious and more functional in the world. But satisfaction won't be found there until we find a source of that compulsion and we turn it back upon itself. And when that light of eternal movement turns back upon itself, then we have like, wow, we can be completely fulfilled, at least in an energetic way. And
we see that we are that.
Yeah.
We are that potential and that the fullness, and we are, you know, exactly who we need to be and exactly where we need to be. And you're speaking in such, like, I mean, like, textbook terms of spiritual practice in this creative way. I love it. It's so refreshing, because it's there's no lineage attached to it. Like, it's that simple. And it should be that simple.
No dogma.
Yeah.
It's as simple as recognizing. I always say to people, when people tell me, they say, my guitar playing is not good enough. And I say, how do you know that? What is that intelligence that's telling you that? You know. And my writers, my songwriting students, it's like they know something is wrong with what they've just written. And it's like, how do you know that? What is that implicit intelligence? And can you access that intelligence itself pure without trying to manifest it as a great poem or as a great song? Can you enter into that knowingness which is filling your life with maybe desire, maybe unrequited desire? You know, can you look at that desire itself And is there satisfaction within examining that flame? And all the mystics and all the masters tell you yes. And my own experiences, and you and I have done this with the gaze, with the aspect of consciousness, which is looking, and you can enter into the consciousness of actually seeing, so that you become aware that you are a sight itself. You become aware that you are that drive, and that, fulfill it, but recognize that you are that, and start from there. Write your songs, do your music from that empowerment, rather than from a feeling of inadequacy. Oh, I don't know all the chords. You'll never know all the chords. My fingers won't move up the way they should. I don't know the fretboard. They'll never do exactly what you want. But just to simply recognize the source of your own intelligence, and rest in that for a while.
It's such a powerful place to be, and to start from there. And because one of the questions that I was going to ask you, and I ask people, is, when you get into spiritual stuff, and it's like, okay, now how do I do that? Because we always want this, tell me how. But I've already answered that, in the sense that just finding that place, just examining, just looking, is giving you that power to find that place and to work from there. Like, if you start from that space, and I know for me, in my better moments, not in my neurotic, compulsive moments, but in my better moments, when I am in that place, and I just accept it, like, this is who I am, this is the level that I'm at, this is what I'm capable of, this is what I love, and this is what is important to me, and I'll write from that space. Every time, it is more fulfilling. Infinitely more fulfilling than learning a new technique and like, oh, I gotta do this, and no, I gotta do this. And it's very powerful.
And now that you're saying that, it's obvious that you've recognized the uncomfortable feeling that's trying to move you into disempowerment. It's like there's this tingling, niggly little thing which is saying that this is a bunch of old crap, and so you recognize that voice, as it were, and we can put that voice to use, because it's very likely that what we are writing is a bunch of old crap, but we don't have to be commandeered by that. We can recognize that there's an intelligence behind that kind of critique, and find that what's behind. I always say to people, when you walk into a room and it's 10 degrees colder, the AC is on. In Florida, man, I lived in Florida. You walk into a restaurant and it's like you need an overcoat, because the difference is so startling with the temperature, and so you walk into this cold, and so what is it that knows the cold? What is it that knows it's cold? I mean, if I asked you that question, what would you say? What is it that knows the cold?
I don't know. It's hard to put into words. I know it because there's this.
You know it because you're warm.
Yeah.
Your own heat is telling you that's cold. So when you're writing a song and you say that's not good, your own excellence is telling you that's your own capability is telling you you're not reaching your potential. And so to be able to rejoice and step back from the critique into the intelligence that recognizes the difference. So when you come into a restaurant and it's cold, something recognizes the difference, and that recognition is the presence of your own heat. So the recognition that you're blowing it is coming from the presence of of that which never blows it. The presence of the clarity of your own consciousness.
It's so simple.
And we can learn to move back into clarity. So clarity is not a state that we attain by becoming knowledgeable. No, clarity is like just empty cognizance, luminous awareness. And that's what sees the bullshit. That's what sees the crap. That's what feels awful. You know, that's what allows us to feel awful. And we can move back from the crap that is being seen, from the awfulness, into the awareness of that which sees.
It's like the you stumbled into Dzogchen.
Dzogchen is exactly right. Yeah, and that
Best
zero
guy.
place we talked about is exactly that. Just abandoning all hope, abandoning all want to change and make anything better, and just be quiet. Just be totally still for maybe only a second. But in that second, you can have it's an eternal moment. You know.
Yeah, I love how clear you put that. It's just so. It's so obvious, really. Like when anybody who's ever, attempted a creative practice has seen it, because, the first time you pick up, or not even the first time you touch an instrument, the first time you hear it, you recognize that element of just beauty and that purity of art. And I think that's what one of the things that connects it so much to the spiritual path in my mind is just that there's this essence, whether it's high tech, high quality, or virtuosic, or it's somebody strumming a couple chords. When
virtuosic, I like that.
When you know, it doesn't matter what level it is, And like when you're a young kid, I remember the first time I saw live music and saw somebody performing well and played music that resonated with me. It was just there. It was part of me. I knew that was good, or that was something. Maybe good's not even a good word for it, but with all this being said, how would you feel about playing a song?
It's early in the morning here for me, but I'll give it a bash.
Okay, pressure you into it. I love your music. Yeah, well, I'll start another track for it here. Yeah. All right. Do you have a name of a tune you want to play?
Yeah, this is called "Make It Home Tonight."
Okay.
Sing to me so sweet a song, my doubts fly away. Words so true, this heart of stone turns like potter's clay. You're the breeze that's whispering through this broken cage. I know that you can make it home tonight. Sing to me a mountain stream, cool the burning sand. Winter roses opening, though spring is not at hand. You're the song that sailors sing when land is out of sight. I know that you can make it home tonight. Tiny candles shining so my shadow disappears. Laughter through the ocean of my tears. Tiny vessel, carry on the storms behind you now. And every prayer you've ever prayed is a wave beneath your bow. Take this furrow from my brow, plant it in your field. Take these doubts around me now and hold them till they yield. Turn this endless falling down into freedom's flight. I know that you can make it home tonight. Turn this endless falling down into freedom's flight. Take this lonely
That was beautiful. Thank you.
So are we okay with a mic like this now? Do we need to put it back down to where it was? Or
It's fine.
It's okay?
Yeah, I think. With a little adjusting to get the song in there, but we're good.
Cool.
That, God, the lyrics to that song are just beautiful. They're just so poetic and just so meaningful. Can you mentioned that, like, giving lessons of your songwriting and how it's got to be an interesting place because words are so, we have such a strange relationship with words, and I know for me as a songwriter, that's definitely a strong point for me, is like wanting to get it right, wanting to have the right words, wanting to have meaning. Like, how do you go about your songwriting? Do you have any kind of format or anything like that you like to use, or do you kind of just let it come through?
You and I have done this technique called a gaze, where you just enter into a feeling of sightedness. Just enter into your seeing, so that your whole experience becomes seeing. So that's different than thinking. So when you're thinking about something, you look up maybe to the right or to the left, and you're considering a concept, and there's a big difference between looking through words and looking through vision. So when you kind of enter into the aspect of your being which is visionary, and that has to do with the way that you see and the way that your relationship with looking in general. And so you open up to vision and you just look up and you have this silly feeling of kind of no thought, and yet you're very aware and you're very conscious. And so there's a beautiful kind of release of just looking at your material in your heart and your mind. It's like the heart and the mind are involved. It's not just the mind. It's this wonderful feeling of like, what am I trying to say here? That just doesn't sound right. So you don't get caught up in that, in the doesn't. Don't get caught up in the lack, in the not. You go into the light that knows that it's not right. It's a whole different thing. So you enter into that intelligence which is telling you, you're not quite there with this, And so it's the same light that we examine ourselves in meditation. You look at, so these thoughts are passing me by. How do I even know they're passing by? What is that cognition inside me? It's hard to kind of talk about this because it's kind of sounds like very abstract. But it's an actual really beautiful experience of if you're watching a child, like I'm watching my granddaughter, I try to put a triangular, piece of plastic into a round hole on some toy. You can see that she's getting it wrong. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And she can't yet see, but you can see. So there's this thing, cognition. If we could just fall back into cognizance, we'd see. It takes a stopping of the compulsive thinking, the endless streams of associative, relational concepts, which tend to be kind of like blah, and so you can see that you're seeing that, and you can go, no, there's something that I'm trying to say here, and I don't even know what it is. And you just kind of stay in that okayness. You're okay about not knowing. I think that's like one of the first things. And you don't get upset. You don't allow yourself to get a little bit kind of, how you get when you're not frustrated is the word. You get frustrated, you're trying to do something. But if you can just stay with the light of, it's not right, it's just not right. And there's a humorous kind of feeling there. And you stay with that beauty of that humor and that smile, and you open up to it. And it'll show you what you're trying to say. Because what you're trying to say is like probably coming from some deep, some deeper thing. Not always. Sometimes you're just talking about boots and hobnail boots and, concrete playgrounds like I did on my... But still, even though when you're talking about ordinary things like nuts and bolts and cars and, in houses or whatever. There's some kind of how can I say, free association behind it, which can link ordinary things with deep metaphor, and that's the thing, is knowing that there's metaphor behind maybe some of the ordinary things you're trying to say. Maybe you're writing about a relationship that went wrong, and you're saying, well, I trusted you and you betrayed me and blah blah blah, and so you can just write that down, but you won't be happy. And then you look at it and you'll see there's probably a way of putting this that has the understanding that I'm looking for. And maybe you don't even have the understanding yet yourself, and to open up to that and realize, I would like to be more big-hearted about this, rather than being petty. I'd rather have a bigger, more kind of a more universal way of looking at this. And you just put that intention in there. You open your eyes and open your heart and just allow it. Some songs have taken me 5 or 6 years to write, because I didn't have...
Just didn't fit.
I didn't have the understanding. So you have to wait for the understanding to come. And here's the thing, whether you understand or not, you're whole, and you can be whole laughing at the fact that I don't understand anything, and you can be just totally fulfilled in that.
You could write some good songs from that.
You can, that's right,
not
yeah.
knowing.
I wrote a song once saying, I don't know. It was like, I don't know where to begin, I don't know what I can say, I don't even know what I'm trying to say, Yeah,
it's so... you just touched on like one of the most magical things for me about songwriting, where it's like, the one element is trying to say what you feel, and you're trying to get it out there, and that's where the metaphor stuff comes in. And I feel like metaphor is like, it's the only thing that really connects us with the unspeakable in a way that you can not only grasp it, but it makes sense universally. Like you talk about the flowing nature of time or something, and you equate it to a river, or you use nature as a metaphor in all these ways, which spiritual practices have done it forever. Jesus was talking about it, using natural elements as metaphors, and it's this thing that's just so, we see all this beauty of nature around us all the time, and it means something, but we don't quite get it is when we're young. We know it's there, we feel it, but we don't quite get it. And then I feel like as you get older, poetry comes into play, and it dilutes it, I think, in a way, but it also allows you to grasp it more. And that's the first element of songwriting. But the really magical one...
Poetry is a garment that should be dropped every now and again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
You should have wardrobe malfunctions as you're writing,
Yeah. Well, and also not knowing, like you said, and not having the right things to say, it allows space for deeper meaning and understanding, I think, when you can't put words on it.
And you know what else can do it is the passing notes in music. Say, like if you're playing in like an A minor, for instance, and you're going like a la, and you go so there's like a 9, for instance, and like the ordinary chordal note would be a C, and instead of going la dum, you go la dum da 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 dum la da, and play singing an F over an E minor, da 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 da. So you're knowing the value of the passing notes and hanging on them. Like a passing note is, for instance, if you're in a chord of C and you're going to an E, you might go C, D, E, like so if you hang on that D for a wee bit, it has the feeling of like, okay, there's something coming here.
Yeah.
It's like a dawning, So knowing the value of the passing notes and the suspensions, you can put things in that you can't say with words. because the music can hold the tension of the unresolved, you know.
And you're just using a vocal phrase that's not even using a word and it's still saying so much.
That's right. You can go, you know, so you can go. Oh, da, dee, 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 dee. So knowing as you're singing those notes across the ordinary mode or the scale, knowing the kind of like the way that they impact your own nervous system. So I spent like literally thousands of hours hanging over a piano, singing sad notes over minor chords, and finding what are the notes that really get you.
Yeah.
You know, what are the notes that just do it.
That's some of my favorite vocal exercises, is just laying down like basically a drone, like just like going on a chord and playing all the notes inside of it and just vocally, going through it and just finding where that
finding
emotion
the
is.
modes, yeah.
It's a cool exercise for sure, and it gives you this. It gives me a sense of like what colors come out of it.
Absolutely. You know, when I was in the orphanage, I found a book of scales in a back room. In the band room, there was this back room, and it was like thousands of like manuscripts and something. I went rumbling through there, and I found this thing, and it went like scales for the trombone. The modes, you see. So I played those things like depressed out of my head because I was abandoned by my mother, and so I just played these things until every scale kind of meant something to me. And you know, like the 4 scale, like the Lydian. So all of the modes and all of the chords have like scales built on them, which can blow your mind if you just can slow down enough to feel what they're doing to you. Most people, maybe not most people, but quite a lot of people, beginning musicians, don't really know the value and the pathos and the heartbreaking unrequitedness built inside certain modes. You listen to the Indian ragas, man.
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah.
Oh my God!
They have emotions locked in with certain ragas. Like, this one is for sunrise. This one is for morning.
That's right.
And you hear it, and you're like, yes, like that is.
Yeah.
It's such a cool.
You listen to Paul McCartney. He's like, yesterday. The first note's a 9. La, la, you've heard it in lots of songs. Da, 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 da. You know, so knowing, you know, that there's the 9 on the G, and then the 9 on the A minor, and when you go to the B minor, it's really weird. So many years depressed, hanging over a piano, just finding those notes that express my downwardness.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it served you well. It's bringing me up right now. It brings other people up.
Well,
too.
that's what they say. Nothing like a sad song to bring you up.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We've been going for a while. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but God, there's just so many things I could keep talking to you about. But the one thing I did want to finish what I was saying, because you said it so well. The other half of that songwriting thing, other than trying to express something, is playing and then learning something from it. You know, you write this song, you didn't even realize what it was about. And that is where it starts, for me, it really starts bridging the gap between the creative and like the cathartic spiritual element of things. Because I'll write songs, I'll sit down and there's just a feeling to this progression or whatever it is, and then the words come. I don't have to try. You know, the motif comes. It's like, there it is. Okay, the song's about heartbreak or whatever it is, you know. And there's something in that sound that when you're sensitive enough to it, it wells up in you.
Yeah.
And that's that space that was always there, that like
Yeah.
inward light, like you were saying, you know, and that's something that I find so magical.
Really.
And it's really beyond words until you experience it for yourself, when you're just like, that song just wrote itself, you know.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
I think that your way of teaching, you know, you go to a music teacher and it's like, okay, here's your scales, here's this, here's your chord progressions, now put this together, and like that's one way. But when I was taking vocal lessons with you, was so much other stuff going on, like, all right, let's do the gaze. And it's like, what does that have to do with it? But when you really let go and you get into it, I feel like all of that stuff comes up. The deep
What's
stuff.
happening in your eyes when you're singing? You know, are you kind of closed off, or is your eyes, are you entering into a feeling of okayness with yourself? You know, are you at home? And the answer, even for me, a lot of the time is no.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just thinking about something, or I'm worried, or I'm playing wrong chords and my fingers are not working right, you know. But really, it's like, you know, the more we focus on just releasing our judgment of ourselves, you know. And there's all kinds of ways to kind of help to do that. And then there's waylessness, which is just no way, Jose, just do it.
That's great. Well, I think this is a great place to bring it to a close, even though I'd love to keep going. But one thing that I always like to ask people is just, given all the stuff that we just spoke of, if somebody was to approach you, you know, with questions like these, you know, with this kind of aspiration to connect musically and connect on a deeper level, like, what little bit of wisdom could you give them to say, you know, if you're looking, start here?
Well, you know, spiritually, do you mean musically or spiritually?
I mean, it's all kind of tied together with what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So what works for you?
I would say to become aware that you're aware, you know? I mean, and that's kind of hard, I think, for some people to do. But, you know, become aware that there's a part of you that's liking certain things and recognizes excellence. So if you can really grasp the fact that if you're recognizing excellence, that's your own quality, that's your own excellence, is seeing that. And if you can kind of like feel that and say, wow, man, I'm not a great player, but I can really appreciate what that guy's done. And that must mean something. And start with the fact that you're able to appreciate, that you have this power inside you which is going, shit, that's freaking awesome. How do you know it's awesome? You're awesome.
That's great.
That's where I would start.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know you're super busy. Are you taking on any students now, or?
I can take on students.
Yes. I know you're super busy.
I'm really busy, but there's always little slots opening up, and people who have enough of me, they say, that's enough.
Yeah.
No more of that, thank you very much. And so there's always slots opening up. And so, yeah.
Well, I'll put your website on, a little link to it on the show notes. And
perfect.
If you got time, maybe people hit you up, we'll see. But are you performing at all these days?
No, I don't know why, really. I just enjoy teaching so much. Really, I mean, it's much more beautiful for me to have somebody else sing and help them to sing than for me to be impressing people with my hard-won, stolen excellence.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, we just got a little performance out of you.
There you go.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Lessons in falling morning rain. Catch them in buckets and jars of the warm rain. is something deeper than friendship that I find in the shelter of your easy company. Somewhere in the trusting of the silence that leaves nothing unspoken, we set each other free. There in the space between the lines, traces of the innocence we thought we'd left behind. I can't say that I always know what's on your mind, but I always know for certain you're a friend of mine. They say that on the far side of the river, old friends will gather together in a dance. But something in this precious passing moment will disappear forever, so I will make my stand. There in the space between the lines, I'll meet you in the now and then, and when you've got the time, here while the blossom is still upon the vine, I'll make you know for certain you're a friend of mine. It's the last breeze of winter, warm as the breath, it's the sunlight in the flower melting the frost. It's the joy in the aching, it's the jewel in the dirt, it's the knowing that there's nothing ever lost. No, it's found, then it's lost and found again. I walk along the river in the lamplight, looking for the city that used to be my home. And still the mists of memory wrap around me like smoke around the chimney, still clinging to the stone. There in the space between the lines, you're shining through the reverie, the water and the wine. If I could start again across the mystery of time, I'd live my whole life knowing you're a friend of mine. Yeah, you're a friend of mine. I want you to know